Alright, seems like recording started. A little lag for a moment there, so sorry about that. Anyways, so we're going to start with our second tutorial of C++ within CryEngine. We're just pretty much going to jump right into it. On the last tutorial, we kind of set up the project already, so I'm not going to go over that again. Right now, I'm inside the project game directory right here, and we're just going to go ahead and just start up the solution file. So let's go ahead and do that. And you might notice that I have done some little bit changes here on the strut for the status. All I did was just add another schematic range, same identical as health max, but I added a health medium that equals 500 float, so half the value of 1,000. And I did the same thing for stamina medium, which again is just half the value of the 3,000, so this is 1,500 point float. And then just once again, you did this in the last tutorial. All I did was just add those two variables within the reflect type. As you can see, it's just hem or HEAM, health medium, set this into medium health value. And same thing with stamina medium, set this into medium stamina. Now the purpose behind doing these two, health medium and stamina medium, is what we're going to be doing onto this tutorial. So continuing off where we're doing with the status component, we're just pretty much setting ourselves up so that way we can have a threshold, meaning that at a certain point in time we want the system to notify the user, hey, your health is getting dramatically low, meaning that you can use these values, and again we can manipulate them within the editor, and say, hey, something's going on with it. Again, I'll explain more as we go along. Now going down to the actual status components, we have our set GUID, we have our status params here. I don't think I did this in the last tutorial, but right here we have the S status with the ampersand sign, I don't know that I'm saying it right, but the and symbol, and it just says get status and then return the mstams params. So, and then we have that member down here, status params, with the with the M as a declaration is for member. And then also in protected, we also have the update status, which takes a float for frame time. So just to jump into it, what we're going to do is expand this reflect type here. So right now we have health max, stamina medium. And I do believe in the last tutorial I did set up that we can expose that to the editor, but I kind of erased the code because I was trying to remember where I left off. So I kind of have to redo it. So if you already know this part, then by all means you can go ahead and skip ahead in the video, but we're just going to add the member. Alright, we're going to call this member, add member, sorry, ampersand C status component, right, and we're going to do colon, and we're just going to look for the M status params, and then we're just going to say stat there, and then say status. I guess we can say properties or params. That's fine. Params, status, params. Again, if you already done this, I'll make sure to mark where you can skip ahead on that. And we're just call null pointer here for the description, because we're just going to utilize the description here. And then we're just going to call the S status and initialize it like that. Also, what we're going to do for the description is set the label, call this status component. What we're also going to do is set the description. Oops, I hit enter on that, sorry about that. Set description, this is a string or a constant char, and we're just going to say, I don't know, our awesome status component. Could be, obviously you can make that description better. And then we're going to set the flag values. And to set the flag values, I'm going to jump to the spawn point header file, and we're just going to grab these right here, set component flags. We'll just take this, see editor category, and make sure we do that too. So we're going back to our status component. We're going to plop that in there. We don't need a transform. That's not necessary for us. So all we want is socket and attach, and right after the no, I guess we can do right after the description. Description set editor category, and we'll just say this is under game. Alright, with that in mind, let's go ahead and jump over to the CPP file now for status component, and we're just going to do this. So we're going to say status component. I'm going to add another variable actually, so let's hop back. And if you notice, the player dictates if we are alive or not, and we don't want the player component to do that. And you can see here under player.h, scroll down, right under protected, M is alive. So we're going to steal this from player, plop that into our status. So we're just going to put this right under protected. Is alive equals false, and then we're going to say right in here, M is alive equals true. The moment this gets initialized, this becomes true. And then back to status component.h, what we're going to do is get a get for this is alive. Because right now it's under protected, so we can't actually access the M is alive outside of the status component header. So to do so, we're just going to create a bool. So creating a bool as a function, you must return a bool, right? So if you create a bool, you must return a bool. Create a float function, you must send back a float. If you create a entity kind of function, you must return back the object. So bool is what's the same? Call it the same, is alive, and then immediately just return M is alive. So now we have our function here is alive, which is return this variable. So with our get status, status params, everything looks like it's up to date. So let's go ahead and move back to the status component CPP file. And right in here, we're just going to do a quick check. If is alive, alright, so is alive is a function. Now we can do it like this. Whoops, not that symbol, this symbol. So if this is not true, then return out. Pretty much saying, or I mean, honestly, we can say if this equals false, all right, that's fine too. So if this equals false, return out, don't do anything. And then what we're gonna do is say if get status, but a dot, max health is less than or equal to get status health medium. And what we're going to do is do a cry log so we can test this. Warning, low health. Right? So we're just going to create that simple. We're going to save. Let's check. Alright. Make sure editor is set up as project. And then we're just going to go ahead and launch. Once we build it, obviously. Oops. I don't think I built it. So build. Yeah, make sure we build first. Got ahead of myself there. Alright, succeed. Let's go ahead and launch this. And we can also just use the member, just like we did up here. So we don't have to use this function. This function is technically used for anything outside of our code. I mean, outside of our component, status component. But it's fine to use it within it. Let's go ahead and open up the editor. Let's go ahead and open up the example map. And if we click on the box and we go to properties, this box already has the status component, but let's click on it again. Let's go ahead and add components, game, status component. And you can see it has our values set here. And inside the console, nothing's happening. So let's go ahead and take our value. And if it wants it to work with me, there we go. Whoops. Slide this down. Let's see if we can get past. Yep, there we go. We got past 500, which is the median value, and now we have our warning. And it's just spamming it. Hey, warning, low health, low health. And obviously, when we go down to 0, there's nothing happening. So let's go ahead and add that functionality too. So if get status is less than or equal to health medium, and we're also going to do another check with this symbol. So this right here is like, you know, the and. So and we can use this twice to enforce it. So we're going to say and m is alive, right? So we're not going to use the function, we're just going to use the member. And actually, let's go ahead and change that here too. So now we're just using the member. So again, we can obviously use the member that we created, or we can use the function. But it's good to use the function outside of the scope. So get status is equal or less than status component dot medium, and you must be alive. You'll get this warning. If you're not alive, regardless of what this says, if you're not alive, then this would never be true. And then now we can just continue an if statement. So we can say else if, or we can just go straight to another if. We can say if, and we're just going to take what we did up here, health medium. Actually, we're going to take this portion of that, paste that into here, and we're just going to say 0, right? And we're going to say cry log, you are dead. And we'll make a UI setup for this too. So get status, if you're less than the medium health and you're alive, then warning null health. If you are dead, then you're dead. And what we're going to do is flag this m alive equals false. So not only that you're dead, this is also equal false. And this will just continue to spam. So it's going to keep flagging this false, and it will not do this warning. It's just going to do this warning. And this way you can believe me, we're just going to hit build and then run the editor again and test it out. Now this is not an optimized way to do this. Obviously, since this is being updated every frame, the moment that either you're dead, it should stop checking it. So we're going to put that into our switch statement up above, and you'll see what I'm talking about. So let's go ahead and open the example level. Let's click on our trusty box, and let's see what happens when we reach below 50 and 0. You are dead. It's simple. You are dead. And let's go ahead and minimize the editor. Warning, you are dead, and exit code 00. So it does this because it's spamming it, but it works. So M is alive, you are dead, and it no longer spams warning health. So we're also going to do a check here. We're going to say if M is alive, so if this is true, then we'll update status component. If not, nothing. So this only can happen if this is true. So at the moment this becomes false, not only will this stop, not only will it log you are dead, but it will also stop the updating until this becomes true again. So it's a good premise. It's the same thing like in the player CPP file. We can check that right inside its switch. If M is alive, spawn the cursor, else remove by sandbox, which doesn't really work. But if you're not alive, then MP cursor entity equals null pointer, which means just to remove it, make it null. So we're pretty much doing the same thing. And this function, I don't think that works properly, but whatever. So we have that. And what we can do now, we can add this to the player. So to add this to the player, right here, Crytek does it like this, or in the example. We have our component, right? So if we go to camera component, we look at it with the control left click, we see that it's a class, right? And it takes the interface of iComponent, and it takes the interface of component previewer if it's release on the release build. But we can see that it has an enum. We can see that it has an initializer, add camera to this, unactivate, and all this fun stuff. And it's just pretty much saying whenever you add a class component, not a class itself, well, I guess you can say class itself too, but a class component especially, you want to do it in this format, which is by default it's null, right? It doesn't really exist until we tell it to exist on top of an entity. So pretty much it means this. If we go back to the top, we need to add the header file, which I already did. Components, player, status component. So we need to add that header. And then down here, all we need to do is say C status component pointer. So the asterisk symbol or star symbol, the pointer symbol, MP status component equals no pointer. Whoops. Now this is fine. You can write it like this. You can write it like this. Just make sure you put a squiggly line there. So you can write it like that. I prefer to write it like this. And then what we're going to do is take the status component. So we're just going to highlight this and copy it. Go to player CPP. And when the player is initialized, we don't want to do it here. What we want to wait for is the initialization of the local player. So create the can component. So this is when the player actually becomes local, right? When it becomes local, it activates not only the camera, but the inputs and the audio listener. So we can do this either at the end or we can do this at the beginning. I'd rather do it on top. Don't interrupt the camera component. That should be first. I'd rather not interrupt the audio component, but we can put it right here smack in the middle of these two components. So we'll say paste in our MP status component equals MP entity. So this refers to this entity player. We're going to get or create component, and we're just going to say CS status component, and then that right here just initialize. This is a type function. If you go to look at it, template, type name, component. I won't go into detail what types are, but it's very useful in creating customary functions that you can initialize things like this. I mean, there's actually, like the saying goes, a million ways to skin a cat. Creating a type class like that is like unbelievable what you can really do with it, and it gets more into the advanced aspect of C++. But just understand, if you highlight over this, it tells you too how to utilize this function. Get or create component. You need to have the component name and then the function. And there's actually a bool that's hidden, as you saw. Check hierarchy is automatically equal true. And it says get an existing or create a new initialized component inside the entity. Whether or not we should traverse the inherent hierarchy for all components, otherwise perform a much faster quality check to see the implementation of the component type. So by default it says to true, which is the fast way, and we set that to false, or false I think says to fast. False is set faster, true is slower. No, I forgot which way it does it. But anyways, don't worry about this parameter. It's useful, but for right now we're just leave it as it is. And now we have our status component. Now you must be wondering, well great, we added the player, but the player immediately starts with the default value of 1000 and the max value of stamina and these two medium values. How do we change these two? Well, good thing we have get status component, right? So with that in mind, what we can do in player CPP, we can say, we can do this. We can say constant float, or actually we can just say floats. Let's just call this new health maybe, equals, let's say 100. Right, and then we can say float new stamina equals 100 also. Right, now with those two float values, and actually we can put these two values as a member. Right, we don't need to put them here. We can do it here, that's fine, but it'd be smarter to put it in player.h under protected. We can put these two values in here, put m underscore and then another m underscore, right? So we know that these are members. Go back Actually, I'm going to highlight this and copy it. It's not, or no, that's fine. Let's go back to player.cpp. And with that, we can say get status. Whoops. I'm sorry. It's going to be MP status component pointer get status. Whoops. Dot health max equals m dot new health. And then same thing for stamina. So get status component get status dot stamina max equals m underscore new stamina. Now these two values are 100, so there's another issue that we have to address, which is the health medium. Right now it's set to 500. 100 is below 500, so we're going to be spamming low health. So same thing, new stamina, new health, and then we'll add another float value, m underscore new medium health equals, let's say 50, and then float underscore new medium stamina equals 50 also. So with those two values, let's go back to player.cpp, and then we're just going to highlight and copy get status right before the dot, and we're just going to paste that and say dot health medium equals m dot new medium health, and then control V again, m stamina medium equals m underscore new medium stamina, and that's it. Now to check if this is working properly, all we need to do is say, hey, get status component, right? This status component. Let's go ahead and have it spam it to us. What's our status? So right here in update, do not update the player if we're not have spawned yet. So m is alive, return, right? Right in here, we can also say, again, don't do it like this, but we're just going to do it as a check. We're going to say, whoops, health with the percent symbol 0.2, because we just want 2. Because if we just say %f, it kind of gives us the whole string of the decimal symbol, so like 0.0000. With 0.2, now we just get the first 0, 0.2 numbers afterwards. So if I put 0.3, then it would be 0.000. With 0.2, we have 0.00, if that makes sense. So 0.2 just means, hey, give me not the first 0, but the next 2 zeros, and then, you know, so on and so forth. If it was just the f with in front of the percent symbol, it would just spit out this value like that. So that's pretty useless. We don't need all that. All we need is the next 2 decimals. So with that in mind, we're going to say comma, paste that in there, health max. Whoops, right there. So now let's go ahead and save, build, and what we're going to do is launch game launcher, because right now we don't need the editor for this test. So we're just going to launch the game launcher. I'm going to move this just up here to the top, and just what we're looking here is the output. We're just checking the output. All right, now it says 0, and it could be saying 0 because stop. Let's see what gets status component. I don't know if the value is set properly. As we can see it right here, get status parameters 100, 50, 100, and then 50. So our parameters are set, but for some odd reason it's not popping out. And I just think I just realized why. That's fine. Stopping the code like that, again, I just put a breakpoint there, just by clicking here, and then I can see that the value is changed to what we wanted. So which is good. Right now the health updating might be updating faster before it got updated, so that'd probably be a worst case to put it into here. We might have to put it somewhere else. Which is funny because M is alive. So let's change this M is alive. We're not using this no more from player. What we're going to do is say MP status component is alive. So let's see if this works just fine. So let's build. It should just work because we want the status component to let us know if we're alive or dead. If not, we might have to change the way the flag works. So we build, we're running, and good. All is good. We are alive. And we can stop this, build one more time and double check. Yep, updated. So, and we're going to stop the code there and see what the flag says. So it stopped. As you can see, status component, our health is set, and we are alive. Good. So all of that is working. So our status component is the one dictating to the player component, hey, you are alive or you are dead. It's not the player component anymore, so we're separating that from the two. Matter of fact, we can go back to the player.h file, and now we can get rid of this. Don't need that. And player.cpp is alive. All we need to do is say, hey, is alive. So we can actually create a new function too, because this is is alive is being set by this event param, right? Which is disable player when leaving game mode. So if this is like a simple flag change of is alive, and then again we can do the same thing up here. So let's take this function, let's paste it in here, and then let's go down to below. Only send the revive event to players that have already respawned in the server. So don't send the event to the entity, only send the revive event to players that already respawn on the server. So this we have to change to. So we're just going to say that there, and revive is, don't know why that, just decide, oh yeah, so is alive goes true. So what we need to do is go back to status component.h. This is a check, right? So let's go ahead and say bool. We can say or we could put it into is alive or is alive. But let's create a function. Alive. Let's just call it that. Bool. It must take in a true or false. So I guess I can say bool. No, can't do double bool. That's right. Bool. I'm trying to figure out what we can call this parameter. Flag change or change is alive. That's fine. And then immediately we're going to say return is alive, but it equals to the change is alive. And hit F, so colon. So what this will do is that it will take an input and return you back an answer. So pretty much it'll take in this parameter and spit back to you an answer. Now this is a fine an easy way to do it. And a matter of fact, let me just delete what we did here and show you a different method. So we can do it this way, right? So all I did was hit enter to create this space. And actually I can go up to this line up here, hit enter, now we get this space, and I can say is alive equals this change. Don't forget your semicolon, and then now with this, return to me that. So you can do it this way. That's a little bit more code, but this works also. So watch, if we use is alive or alive, go back to player CPP, and we go to change this to MP status. Oops. MP status component. Don't want to give me my squigglies. There we go. Alive. and this equals this parameter. So actually we can take this parameter, because if we go like this, watch, now it wants to take the event. So let's take this event, plop it in there, close the event out, and then now we can delete this. And now this will take whatever this says. So this will execute, this would then execute, and then this function would execute, returning back the status. So this returns back status, right? So we're returning, and a matter of fact, we can change this to a void to make this less confusing, I guess. And just say, hey, m is alive equals change alive, and then we can do our check up there. So this is actually probably better to use. So with that in mind, now we can just say, go back to player CPP. So m status alive takes that parameter, scroll down, and then again we'll say mp status component pointer alive. I think this said true. I forgot what it said. Let me Control Z. Whoops. Control Z too far. Control Z. Yeah, true. Okay, so mp status component alive true, and that will flag that for us. Everything looks good. Build XCOM, and once it's built and succeed, we'll test. All is working, and we'll test our mp status component there. So jump back in here. Okay, I don't know why that didn't pause. Let's try. Oh no, that's reset. Sorry. Let's break here. 180. There we go. True. Everything's still working. And then let's hit continue. Awesome. And let's hit stop. So everything's looking good. Now this is for when leaving game mode. So let's check that. And to check that, we need to go to editor. So let's start this project, and let's double check to make sure this is working properly. Alright, it's good to check, because I could be wrong. Heck, a lot of programmers are wrong a lot of time too, so it's always good to double check. Even if you're 100% sure it will work, it's good to check to make sure it does. So Control G, I jump in. This gets hit, so let's continue. And now I'm in the editor playing around, right? Put the breakpoint back there. Yeah. Hit escape. Right? This says true, but it should actually return to false. So we put a breakpoint here. Say continue. False. There it is. So that works perfectly for what we need. Alrighty. So we have our status component, and it gets only initialized. This is recapping what we did. The MP status component only gets initialized when the local player gets initialized. And then we pass the handle to do the check, and we pass it through the RMI right over here. Only send to players who are on the server. So if this is not true, then return. And this is the RMI function for on ready for gameplay server. We're not too worried about that right now. But all looks good. Right? Yeah, perfect. So the next thing. Let's see. What we covered so far was just a basic status component, right? This is like the building blocks for any type of component system you might be trying to create. Now, there's some instances where you wouldn't want to use a component, but you still might want to use the features of iEntity component. Just remember, with the iEntity component, you must have a starter with the initialize, or actually, you really can't use iEntity component interface without creating all this fun stuff here. I mean, you could actually, but there's other ways to initialize something without using the entity component, and just by using the constructor here. And then you can delete things when you don't need them in memory anymore with the deconstructor when it's done being initialized. We'll go over that on a separate tutorial. But again, we can kind of build the same system without using the iEntity component. The iEntity component is just an easier, faster way to create components and have it talk to your code and all that fun stuff. So what we're going to add now, or what we're going to cover now, is enums. Right, so as you can see, the status component is just some float values that we created, some arbitrary float values. And then status component, we also have the simple check for update status. Right, all it does is just warns and just let us know when you die. And when you do die, change to am alive is false, but nothing else. This doesn't really do much per se. So what about respawning? What if you die and you want to respawn, right? Because our status component should be able to do that. So with that in mind, what we need to do is go back to player.h. Under player.h, there's a couple of interesting functionality in code. It is local client, right? So that gets called. And then on ready for gameplay server, right? This gets called from this gameplay plugin.cpp. And then we have the initialize local player. And then we have the start remote method declarations, which is the serialize with, position, and rotation. And then remote revive on clients. Remote method intended to be called on all remote clients when the player spawns on the server. That's pretty simple. And let's go to how it sets it up. If we go to player.gameplugin.cpp, the event system game post init right here just starts your map. So if you change this to your map name to whatever map you're working on the editor, this would you'll put this here. We have the register schematic environment, which some basic stuff, call static registry with crystatic algebra parameters. This is what we need to do to use, scroll up this, right, that fun thing. Going back to game plugin. When the system unloads, it clears the player tree of NP players. Anybody wondering what is this? This is a map containing player component. Key is the channel ID receive on client connection receive. So this is map, right? An unordered map. Just think of that as like an array, right? So this is just a map containing player components, but yeah, it's pretty much an array. A more complicated one. So we have is it empty, and the game environment cannot be dedicated, which means is dedicated. If we go to this function, it's an inline constant bool, which returns if it's a dedicated server or not. So this can only work if it's not running on a dedicated server. Spawn the entity, player, set the local entity channel ID, bind it to the network so they can support multiplayer contact, create the player component instance, and then push the component into our map with the channel ID as the key. So all this does is say, hey, on client connection received, push the client with the player component into this unordered map. And then once it does that, so once this becomes true, like once this all finalized, then it goes on to the next step. Revive the players when the network reports that the client is connected and ready for gameplay. So now what this does is that it's going to iterate, or it doesn't iterate, what it does, it looks for the channel within this. So if we say on ready for gameplay, if we click on that, this channel ID that gets made gets passed through here. So it find channel ID, so it finds you or someone connected to the server. And if it does not equal it, then go ahead and spawn them. if this is true, right? This is not equal to. So if this becomes true, then it'll just exit out and just return true. But if it does not find you, or end, I forgot what end. I think it's not end. Return iteration for end multiple sequence. Oh yeah. So once it does do that, it's going to say iEntity player entity get entity. It is the player component, and we can stop it here. And just to show you what it looks like, let's run this as a starter project. It's good to know how this works. There, bam. So this gets hit. If you look at it, get entity it second two. Wait, come on. There we go. Drop down. First, second. This is the system. This gets the entity. And we're going to do stop on here. Continue. Alright, so P player. This is you. 100, 100, 50, 50. The stuff we put. Walk ID. All this stuff is being initialized. Right now the game won't show, but you see it find the player because it's getting the player entity, right? Get component because this component was set up here. So now it just gets it. And it becomes a pointer to this C player component. And then now it just says on ready for gameplay, which then launches this function. This function should only be called on the server. So revive, new transform, right? So this gets called, invoke the RMI, and then so on and so forth. So what we're going to do is see if we can steal this function. It says on ready for gameplay server, game environment, B server. This function should only be called on the server, and then goes through the whole revive step. So what we can do is say on ready for gameplay. We can go to status component.cpp. Up here we can say hashtag include components player.h. And with that, if you are dead, this equals false. And what we're going to do is say auto, and we're going to say p player equals mp entity get component, and we can say c dot status component, or not status component, sorry, c dot player component. So get component on ready for gameplay server. So if we save this, and to test this, what we're going to do on player.h, we're going to look for, not player.h, player.cpp. Scroll up to the controls. So we have walk to, shoot, and here's walk to and shoot. So what we're going to do is add a new input, which is mp inputs.add. It's not bind action, it's register action, sorry. Register action, and what this is group name, so player name. We'll just call this test. Then what we're going to do says cry default components call action callback. And if you notice, it's just this. So this, and then we're going to say int activation mode, and then float for the value, and then we're going to say curly brackets, then end it with semicolon. And then we're going to take the component system again, and then now we're just going to bind this action to player referencing test on EID keyboard. And again, we have all these available to us. So if you want to make it for the controller, you can. So we're going to say key ID. And we're just going to do this for F, for the F key. So what is this function going to do? And right here between the two curly brackets, let's hit enter a couple times, give it some space. In here, since we already initialized the status component, we can utilize some more functionality, right? So, because in the order of this operation, the status component gets initialized first, then the input. If the status component was below the input, you could have an issue. I believe you will have an issue. So just remember the order of things being called is pretty important. So back to status component.h, let's go and create a new function. So we have isAlive and alive. We can do it below here. That's fine. Again, this is pretty a little unorganized, but that's all right. What we're gonna do is say void set health, and it's gonna take a float value, which is new health, and then immediately we can just do it in here. We can say get status dot max health equals new health. So with this function now, going back to player CPP, we can say status, I don't know why this doesn't want to autofill, component dot set health, and let's just put 100 for right now. So this would immediately kill us, right? Or let's do it by blocks of 25. So set health every time this is hit by 25. Save, build XCOM, and let's go to, game launcher is fine. Let's let this finish. So let's launch this. Oh yeah, I forgot, I had the breakpoints here. Continue. Alright, so I'm gonna hit F once, F again. It's already warning us. F again, and we are technically dead, or our health is low, but we are not dead. So let's go to our status component, and let's see right here. F. Still warning us but low health, but why is... Let's go ahead and relaunch this and see what's going on. Very strange. Indeed. Is this being updated? Yes, it is. So let's look at... Why isn't this being updated? Continue. Oops, forgot. So continue. And apparently low health is being called, but this is not. So low health, right? Get status, which means something's updating the health, and it's probably the... So 64 is unready for gameplay. Let's comment these out really quick with the // It could be the on ready for gameplay server, so let's go ahead and build this again. Believe it's this function there. Let's run it. F, warning low health. Warning low health, still warning it. Player.h, player.cpp, set health by 25. Stop. Did I build this? Yes, I did build it. Okay, let's go to this one. Launch it. Should get a stop. Is alive is true. Continue. Warning, low health. And let's stop that here again. True. Health value is 25. So the health value is becoming 25, but it's not hitting 0. Very strange. Oh, I'm so dumb. This is honest. This is a mistake, and some of you probably already noticed. Set health is 25 because we're just setting the health. What we need to do is say, copy this, paste that here, and say minus. There we go. So set health. I mean, this does work. I should have just put 0 and it will work. So. But what I did, I was thinking that I already put it as a minus, so every time I hit the button it should minus it, but I actually wasn't doing that. So we must say get status dot health max equals get status dot health max minus that new value. And then let's go back to status component CPP and uncomment these 2 lines. And now for my stupidity, everything should work. I mean, set health is a good function. We should add, should probably reorganize that. So, with that in mind, F, you are dead. So, I am dead and I'm being spammed here. So, I'm frozen in time because this is being called. Is alive is returning, but you are dead. So, there's an issue. And if you don't know the reason why this issue keeps happening, it's because one simple thing. When you are dead, it respawns you, but then you have low health and then you're dead again. So that's because the player CPP controls the revive state. I mean the reset state. If we scroll down, revive, make this true. For not in the editor, then set the world, reset the character, do all this fun stuff. So not only do we need to set this as true, what we need to do is, before this is set true, we need to say this component set, oops, not set component flags. What we can do is go back to status component.h, set health equals new health minus that, right? So let's change this back to what we had it to new health, just the equal sign. And then what we're going to do is create another function just like this. And instead we're going to call this set stamina. And we're going to say this would be new stamina. And for this dot, we're going to say dot stamina max equals new stamina. So with these 2 new functions, back to player CPP, I'm going to say set health to 100, and then MP status component, set stamina to 100, right? And then for our test, we're just going to say set health to 0. Save, build XCOM. And you're probably getting a lot of ideas how you can incorporate this type of way of doing it too for many different types of, functionality you might want to use. So let's move around really quick, get away from the beginning spawn point, which is right there, and hit F. And we respawn. We respawn, and this happened really quick, as you notice, right? And we can see it happen right here. So let's stop the code right when this executes. So let's go back to the game. Let's move around, right? Let's go ahead and just move over to this corner. Hit F. Right? Now we have set the new values to 100. And then this is going to check the editor. If we're not in the editor, you can go ahead and set the roll TM to there. Continue. And again, it just quickly warned low health, you're dead. Warning low health, you are dead. And that's just because even though we call this functionality, right, on getting here, this gets executed like super quick. And you can see that if we put a breakpoint on line 64 under status component of CPP. If we move over here, hit F, and don't know why they didn't break, but you kind of notice when I click on the area, it wants to go to our last click still. So if I click there, it still wants to go there. So we can, fix that. But for right now, this works. It works as it should. Yeah, it kind of spams it with your dead, your low health, but in all honesty, the moment you die, you do respawn back. So all is kind of good. I'm not too worried about that. And out here in the output for right now. So you notice with this auto, right? This auto pretty much states like, hey, this is whatever your equal sign equals to, right? If I put C player component with the star, right? This is I'm telling the CPP, or in C++, I'm saying this whatever becomes after the equal sign must be this, right? If I say anything else besides C player component after this equal sign, it would not work. So if I put a float, it doesn't work. If I put status component in here, doesn't work, because the value type C status component cannot be used to initialize entity type C player component. So as you can see, this works fine, but this also works fine because this automatically does it for you. If I left click or control left click on auto, it immediately knows where I'm referencing to. So this is like very useful. Just remember that. And just remember, whatever is your auto, right, it would just automatically figure it out for you. There's some cases where you can't use auto, but in like 90% of cases like this, it's really good to use it. So with that in mind, we have our player, which then on ready for gameplay for server gets called. Technically, we can say revive. That's not exposed. So we need to use on ready for gameplay server. I forgot the revive. Where are you? Revive function. Control left click. I control left click a lot. Just know that. Whenever I highlight something, I hit control and left click. So this revive must take a transform matrix 34, which is automatically done by this constant value here from spawn point component get first transform. Now we can take this code, these two lines, and slap it into our status component, and it will still work. The reason why we're using the on ready for gameplay server is because this kind of tells everyone within it, hey, I'm reviving. And to make sure that works properly too, we can actually test that. So let's go back to our project. Let's launch the game here. Put this up on the top left corner. And then we're going to launch the game again through our debugger. And I'll put this on the bottom left-hand corner. So with that in mind, we have two instances of the game running, right? If I use tilde key and I say connect local host, I am now going to connect to the client next, my other client. On the same network, this is on LAN. Okay. Null. Unable to read memory, doesn't know the value. So there's an issue. This issue comes up because the initialize local player did not get called. What did get called, because initialize on local player, if we double click on this, we can see where this gets called up on. And it doesn't get called until it becomes a local player. So we can check that. We can say continue. This is going to break. Close program. Launch debugger again. And let's go back to client up here. See this guy, he's still waiting to connect. Let me close that out. Oops. So this got set. Continue. So he became local player. Let's go back to our project here. Launch game. Right. And you'll see right here, this will not be fired upon. If I go back to this guy, our debugger, and if I say, hey debugger, I want you to connect to localhost. Bam, see this one crashed. And the reason why this one crashed is because this does not get initialized. What first gets initialized is this here. So, with that in mind, what we can do actually is go to the, where are you? Initialize local player. We can take our status component, remove it from here, stop the debugger. Right here, initialize. In the beginning, I want them to do this. So, for anything else, do this. So, let's build XCOM. And you'll see we have fixed that issue. So, open up this. Succeed. Awesome. Launch game. Put this top left. Launch the local debugger. Put this bottom right. So we're here, and I can just go ahead and say connect local host. And with that in mind, back to here. There we are. See, fixed the issue. It's an issue because I ran into this issue before, so I kind of knew immediately what I needed to do. But we have our awesome guy running around, and we have the other player looking at us. So now let's hop over to this guy. Let's move him out of the way. Right, but I want him to see what's going to happen, so let's kind of move him close to the spawn point, but not too close. That should be good. Alright, so I'm over here, chilling around, and let's say I hit F. Bam, I respawn. And he noticed it too. F. See? F. F. Done. And we get this error down here from the absolute location. So let's look at error. Player 01 is too large or invalid. Don't worry about this error. I will address why this error happens on a later note, but it's the world location due to, and I believe it's due to this, the way that these are compressed. But I think if I change, actually let me address this now, because I kind of do want to see if this does fix it. So let me Alt F4 and close this, or not. Alright, I'll just right click and close window. Awesome. So player.h, where are you? Player.h, let's try 3, I think it is. And build. Too many, wasn't it world 3? I swear it was 3 that gave that. Sterilization control, left click on T sterilize. It's a wrapper of I sterilize, read string. Unassigned int 32. So it's a 32. Okay. That's fine. It's unassigned int 32, which only takes, if you know what this means, unassigned int is a type definition which takes bit size 32. There's int 8, 16. The higher the number, the more it can take in sense of zeros. But in any case, that's the issue. It's this right here. The value is probably too big for this to take in to compress, which is why it spits out that error. Like, hey, it's a pretty big position you're trying us to put through initialization. So a little error there, but whatever. Save, build. It should be all good. Awesome. Alrighty. So for right now, I'm going to stop the tutorial here. It's been about an hour. We went through a lot. We polished up the status component. And for a little homework I want you to do is probably change these two functions here. I mean, again, these two work just fine. Is alive is just a quick check to see if you are alive, and then just change the alive status. But the set health and set stamina, actually that's fine too. Don't worry about that, because we have this get status. This is our getter for all these values here. So we don't need a minus or anything like that. What you can do pretty much is this. Under player.cpp, there's a cool functionality. Actually, you know what? I'm not gonna even wait for the next video. Let's go ahead and jump into it for that. I have a few minutes left. So bullet.h right here. Bullet.h. Bam. Collision info retrieve using the event pointer. So what does this mean? This pointer, which gives us a squiggle line because event doesn't even have this pointer. Because if we actually do look at event, if event entity underscore event collision, right? We want to handle something, and to handle it, I'm control left click on as entity if it'll allow me. There we go. So entity structure describes an event ID, and parameters can be set to an entity. So we have n params, f params, event last, some other parameters, blah 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 blah. Right. Well, we have some. If we highlight over, where are you? Reinterpreting class collision event dot event dot any event from enum. That's the event. This is float. This is, and then this is the vector. I think it's n params, if I remember correctly. And what we can do is stop the code and see what this does. I believe is, oh yeah, physics collision. So what we'll say is if this becomes true, then I don't know, cry log found something. And what we can do is actually stop the code on this if statement, build XCOM, local debugger, and really quick, I forgot what is to shoot. Oh yeah, mouse 1. Or, no, it's space, sorry, space bar. So let's see. Let's hit that. Our code stops. Physics collision, which is this. We're going to hit continue. Found something. So found something became true. And I'm trying to get what this retrieved. So let's try it one more time. Come on. Highlight. Okay. Didn't highlight. But what we can do now is say physics collision. Right? pointer ID. See, now we can call this stuff. Oh, and there's p entity. So let's retrieve. But let's go to. There's mat ID, collider ID. Let's call IDs. Let's go to p entity. And what we can do with this p entity, right? So we have p entity. And I believe it'd be like this: pointer or pointer. It's just p entity. P entity. I physical entity. Base for 2 entity events, IDs. So, whoops, stop. Let's say get entity entity 0. This is 0. No, this is 2. Whoops. Or actually, let's say, sorry, get entity ID. Right. What's it? Get entity ID. Get entity ID. Physics collision. Why you don't want to work physics collision? Physics collision. And stores the result returned by the defer event, defer state, type, penetration, contact, p entity, say IE entity, or actually I should be able to, IE entity pointer to p entity equals auto. Whoops. Auto. Do that. P entity. Now, see, it doesn't return a value, which kind of upsets me because I'm trying to think. The physics collision, since we say we found something, this becomes true. So this did found something, so I kind of want to know what it found. And it's becoming annoying that I can't remember off the top of my head right now why. Let's check the ID. Let's go to percent, and it's an ID, so let's use I for integer and just say physics collision ID. In addition to p entity 1 ID caller, so here's all our collisions. Which is the event collider. So this is what we're calling right now. We're saying there's the ID, which is an int, the vector which it got hit. So there's a lot of useful information here. The mass, the part ID, penetration, no more impulse radius. This right here, contact, reverse, reserved for internal use. Well, we might be able to use this. Whoops, rebuild. I hit rebuild, but I meant to hit build. That's fine. See the ID of it. So let's go ahead and launch this. And again, we're just gonna hit spacebar really quick. Found something 2. Was that already 2? I think it was, wasn't it? Yeah, it's equal to it already. So physics ID. Oops. Physics collision. Pointer. P4 data. Entity contact. I don't want to use this. Or just P entity. Let's see what that logs out. Build. There's another way to do this, but I want to check the collision info signature using the event pointer. Let's see if this is working properly. Found something. 699-776504. So user. Let's say PI entity is what? Control left click is the iPhysical entity. So we'll say iPhysical entity that pointer that P E, and then we'll say that equals to this. Cannot be a value type of this pointer, or no, that won't work. Let's think of something else. Okay. I am looking for. There's a lot of stuff under physics interface. I might do this another time. But it's cool to know that we can get this parameter and see what it hits. So with that in mind, what I'm going to do is stop the video now. I'm going to go back and double check some code I've done before on this and just make sure I'm doing it right. I feel like I am, but I might not be. But what we're going to do in here is pretty much whatever this collides to, we're going to find out what it is. So for instance, if it is an entity, we're going to say, oh, cool, you hit an entity. Does this entity have a status component? If so, minus health. So quick and easy way to say, whatever this collides, find out what you have. If you have what we're looking for, then do an action. And if you want to do that on your own, fantastic. It'd be a good side kind of homework thing to do. But for right now, I'm going to go back to my O code because I'd rather not try to pull it up now. Some information on there. But I hope you enjoyed the video. Until the next time, I'll see you in the next tutorial. Hopefully sooner than later than this one. But I'll try to keep pumping them out as much as I can with the time I have available. And again, thanks for watching.